Okay, let's test the sound. Okay, so let's give it 2-3 minutes for people to join, and then we get going. Okay, let's start. All right, good evening, everybody. I hope you can hear me well. So today we're going to talk about how to ace your job. Right, I'm going to give a little bit more explanation next couple of slides. But before we go there, let me just quickly introduce myself. So this is me, Serge De Vos. I'm originally from Belgium. I worked in 2 different companies in my career, 13 years with AB InBev, which is the famous company that produces Budweiser, Corona, Stella Artois, as you can see there on the slide, my favorite beer, a beer from Belgium, right? And before that, I worked 10 years for Siemens in IT outsourcing. I graduated in economics, did an MBA at INSEAD, and played all different types of roles in my career in IT operations, logistics, supply planning, service center operations, and a little bit of sales, right? So very cross-functional type of career, also quite international. Worked in Belgium, in the Czech Republic, and now since 2 years, very happy to be here in India. On the personal note, married with 3 kids, and since I'm in India, a big fan of Gopal Das and Sadhguru. Great, I think, legacy here of India, right? Indian heritage that for sure we can use a lot more in our lives and even at work. Passionate Royal Enfield biker. I never drove a bike before, but you know what? Moving to India, perfect time to start driving a Royal Enfield and to start driving a bike. And I do some running to keep myself fit. So that's just a couple of words about me, so you know who's talking to you here through the live cast. All right, so what we're going to talk about today is basically some things that I've learned over the last 2 years while I was here in India. And what I've noticed is that people in India, mainly Indian millennials, the youngest generation, right, is very, very ambitious in India. In fact, they're the most ambitious generation around the world. If we compare to other regions, even within APAC, but also Europe, North America, Indians appear to be the most ambitious. 37% aims to be in a managerial role 1 year after graduating. And from the experience I have working with IT and IM graduates, I think it's probably even more than 37%. Yeah. But what I've noticed at the same time that not so many millennials are able to achieve that goal. Right? There's a couple of challenges that people are facing. Some of them are problems that people face or young people face, I think, around the world. Some of them are pretty specific to the India context. Right? So the first one that I've seen is a lack of role models. Right? So I think economy here in India has been booming in the last couple of years. Right? Big corporates have been on the rise in the last 10, 15 years. But in previous generations, of course, there were less people working in this type of international companies, big corporates, and a lot of the roles that exist today, a lot of the careers that exist today in India haven't been around for more than 20 years. So there's a lack of role models, people in the family, right? In the family circle, people in the friends circle that have had similar types of experiences, similar type of international careers. And so not everybody has access to like role models in the family to talk to and to learn from how to make a great career in the national or international company. Second, and this is something that is widespread around the world, not everybody easily has access to a mentor. Right? Very difficult to get access to a mentor. Several people are lucky, they go and work for an organization that has a mentorship program. Great, they get assigned a mentor, right? If they're considered a talent, get assigned a mentor. But what happens after 2-3 years when the employee leaves the organization and wants to pursue another career opportunity? Yeah, you lose access to the same mentor because that mentor was mentoring you within the previous company, and you have to start all over again trying to find a new mentor in the new company or elsewhere. Right? So limited access to mentors. And last is that I see the generation doesn't really have easy access to very pragmatic tools and methodologies. There's a lot of content available on the internet, but a lot of that content is quite theoretical and not really practical. Very difficult to understand. How do I apply this now specifically in my career, and how does this really help me to move ahead in my career? So these are some of the challenges that I've noticed here in India with young millennials. So what I've basically put together in the last couple of months is kind of let's say a mentoring program that runs over around 4 weeks. And it's basically aimed at people that sound like this, right? So does this sound like you? Are you somebody who is very ambitious, right? You want to grow in your career, whatever that next step is, right? But as mentioned, you don't really have access to a mentor. You have a line manager, but he's not giving you the right advice to really move ahead. You feel that you're a little bit stuck in your career, and you're looking for real pragmatic tools and some methodology to really help you to stand out in your current role, in your current job, and really be able to make the move to the next level, right? If this sounds like you, then basically what I have developed here, based upon the experience that I've had over those 23 years, is kind of a mentoring plan that runs over about 4 weeks, and that has regular learning snippets, right? So in the future probably will be in the form of podcasts. Today is more in kind of written format, 1 or 2 pages with content basically, but quite detailed content with practical examples, and also with practical assignments. How do you apply this learning, that research, this best practice in your career specifically, right? So that's a kind of a program that we put together, and what we're going to do tonight is just run through this this program, this mentoring plan. I'm going to give you a sneak preview of what are the type of topics covered in that program, and then at the end, if you're interested, you can join us and follow this 4 weeks program. All right, good. So Serge's mentoring plan to ace your job. So the first thing, if you want to succeed in your career, if you want to grow to the next level, the first thing you need to do is make sure that, of course, you ace your job, right? You need to be really, really good in your current job. You need to be recognized as somebody who is performing, excellently in the current job before you can even start discussing getting a promotion, moving to a next type of role. So what are those things? What are the things that you need to achieve, the things that you could do in your current role to really ace your job to get ready for the next level? This is my view. So there's a couple of different phases, and so this would be the content that I would gradually share with you over the next 4 weeks. So first phase is about committing, right? Really understanding what does it mean to you to ace your job? What is the goal that you want to achieve? And we'll talk a little bit there about goal setting methodologies based upon research in goal setting. Second, we'll talk about don't drop the ball, as I call it, right? So again, if you want to ace your job, if you want to be seen as a great performer with potential to move up, the first thing you cannot do is you cannot drop the ball, right? Second, if you have everything there under control, I think it's vital that you make your own SWOT, strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats, like a kind of business analysis, but of yourself. What are you really good at? What are you not that great at? What are opportunities for you specifically, and what are threats for your career? So you should kind of make your SWOT and then start working on that SWOT. Third one is really understand your context. What is the context that you are working within? And really make sure that you understand end-to-end the department, the company that you are working in, right? Whether that's a startup, whether that's a big international, doesn't really matter. You need to understand the context within which you operate. The more you understand that context, the more you will be the go-to person for other people in case they have any issues or challenges in their job. Next one is be the spider in the web. I always compare this to the technician, the sound technician, for example, or the visual, the lighting technicians in concerts or meeting rooms, big meeting rooms, conferences, where these people are sitting behind a wall. They're doing an excellent job. All the lighting, all the sound is done perfectly, but nobody sees those people. I need to just give me a second. I have a problem here with the PC. I need to put this on mute. Yeah, there we go. So if those people are sitting behind like a wall, nobody sees them. Well, it's going to be difficult for you to grow in your career. If you're doing an amazing job, but people do not see you, they do not know you, it's going to be, of course, a blocker in your career. So be the spider in the web will be around how do you make sure that you talk to the right people in the right way to really help your career. Then going beyond, so once you have all these basics under control, the goal here is that you will stand out, right? That you show that you have the capability to do more than your current role, and then we're going to talk about how do you go beyond. And then I'll also briefly talk about consistent execution. If you really want to be a top performer, it's very, very important is consistent execution in your role. And then, of course, at the end, get feedback. And I'm pretty sure, by the way, if you follow all these tips and tricks during those 4 weeks, that you would get feedback from people around you, from your line manager, saying that, man, looks like something happened to you. What is changing? And so we're going to talk about how do you capture that feedback, how do you take that feedback and really action it. So these will be the different building blocks of the mentoring program. I just see here that somebody's asking a question, is it applicable for all career roles? I would say yes. So these are very, let's say, they're not industry dependent. They're quite generic best practices. But you will see once I go through in a bit more detail. These are quite generic, so they can apply in any type of industry. Again, they can apply in a startup, they can apply in a national company here in India, international. I think those concepts are quite applicable to all types of industries. And I'll get more in detail because I see some people are saying it's a bit difficult to relate. So we'll jump into the details, right? I'm not going to go through all the details here today, right? This we'll do during the 4 weeks, but I'll already give you some sneak previews. So in step 1, commit. What is step 1 commit about, right? And this is something that you need to consider whenever you put a goal for yourself, whether it's in your private life or it's in your professional life. There are best practices on how do you commit to a certain goal. If you're going to invest your time in the next 4 weeks to try to ace your job, to change something in your career, right? To really show to yourself, your colleagues and your line manager that you are able to progress in your career, you will need to put that goal clearly for yourself. And that's a lot of research that has been done over the last 50 years in terms of goal setting. How do you do goal setting? Right? How do you set a goal for yourself and then really make it successful? A lot of people, for example, in the beginning of the year, right, just 1 month ago, we celebrated New Year's. I'm pretty sure half of the people around the world have put New Year's resolutions. I'm going to start running every day. I'm going to eat healthy. Whatever. I'm not going to eat meat anymore. People put New Year's resolutions, which basically is a goal. It's a goal that people put for themselves for the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. Yeah. But what we see is that after about 1 month, basically now, already more than half of the people is no longer on track with their goal. they've already given up. Yeah. So the question is, how do you make sure that if you put a goal for yourself, that you really stick to that goal and that you're able to achieve that goal? So a lot of research has been done. I'm picking out here one research that kind of consolidated a lot of research over the last 20 years and came up with a great couple of tips on how do you set such a goal. What they did is they did research with several people, right, and several control groups. They put people in the room, they told them, put a goal for yourself, something that you want to achieve in the next 12 weeks. The first group, they just asked them, to commit to that goal, to think about it, set a goal for themselves in their head, and that's it, nothing more. The second group, they asked them to write down those goals, write it down in a piece of paper and put a lot of detail about what they're going to reach, what is the goal about, why is this goal important to them, how are they going to reach the goal, etc. So they asked them really to talk a lot about the goal, what is the goal exactly that they want to achieve, and why do they want to achieve it. And so they had to write everything down. The score here is the percentage of people that successfully has reached their goal within that group, right? So meaning that around 40% of the people in group 1 has achieved their goal after 12 weeks, after 60% of the people in group 2 has achieved their goal after 12 weeks. So there's a big step up just already from writing down the goal. And there's again a lot of science behind this that I'm not going to go into detail to. The third group was asked to do the same as group 2, but also write down what are the next actions they're going to take. What are they going to do next week to achieve that goal? What are they going to do in week 2, in week 3, in week 4? Really make an action plan for that goal. Right there we see again the percentage kind of dropped down, so not really made a significant difference. The fourth group, they asked to commit to a friend, to take that goal, to meet one of their friends. Again, there was a lot of analysis being done. Which type of friend you should discuss this with, a close friend, not a close friend, etc. And they asked them, share the goal with your friend. Explain that person, what is the goal that you want to achieve, why you want to achieve that goal, etc. And you see the percentage slightly increased again to 65%. What made the biggest impact is people who did all of the group 2, group 3, group 4 and group 5 activities, which meant the last one, they also had to give weekly progress updates to their friend. So once we see that people write down the goal, they really clearly write down every week the next actions they're going to take to achieve that goal. They commit that goal to a friend and then give weekly updates. 67% of those people achieved the goal. So this is thinking about the goal like we do in New Year's, right? We put a New Year's resolution, half of the people reach the goal. If you write it down, if you put your next actions every week, if you commit to a friend, if you send an update to your friend, you meet your friend every week and you talk about it, all of a sudden 76% of the people reach their goal. Now that's quite a significant difference, I would say. So the first thing we're going to do once you follow this 4-week program is explain you in a bit more detail how do you describe this goal and how do you commit to that goal, which type of friend should you talk to, how do you do this type of progress report. So we're going to go a bit more in detail still in how do you really make sure if you put this goal for yourself to ace your job, what it means to you, why this is important to you, how you're going to achieve it, and we're going to ask you to share it with somebody. That's going to be the first step, right? First thing we're going to do. And this will make sure that you'll be 42% more likely to hit that goal. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is about do not drop the ball. Now you've committed to the goal, great. So you want to ace your job. You want to be seen as somebody with potential to further grow, good. First thing you can't do is drop the ball, right? You cannot make any silly mistakes. And then if I look around, and this is something I've struggled with myself in those 23 years, but gradually over time have developed some kind of a management system. We're all overwhelmed with inputs, right? For sure today, even more than 10, 15, 20 years ago. This is where I find all my inputs for my work, right? And not even just my work, even the things that I need to do at home, right? I get messages from my boss over WhatsApp. I get questions from my team on WhatsApp. I get emails from stakeholders who are asking me to do certain things. I take notes in my little, paper notebook when I go to a meeting. From time to time, I sit in the car, I get a great idea, so this idea is floating around in my head. I get a phone call from somebody, right? I'm in the car, somebody phones me, we're discussing a great new idea, we're discussing a project, somebody asks me to do something. Again, this action is stuck in my head because I'm not taking a note of it while I'm driving the car. Action logs, right? Not sure about you, but we have action logs in SharePoint, we have action logs in Excel files. You go to a meeting, somebody sends the action log out in an email, in an Excel file, in a SharePoint. All of these actions are stored everywhere, right? And you, of course, need to make sure that if you've agreed to those actions, there's a deadline, that you follow through on those actions, right? If you don't want to drop the ball, you need to make sure you follow through on those things. And then, of course, again, you take notes while you're working. So you have all these inputs from all over the place, right? That's one thing. The question is, how do you make sure that from all those inputs, you do not drop the ball, that you do the things that you've promised to do, right? And again, most likely you cannot do everything, but then how do you make sure you don't overpromise, and how do you make sure you keep track of the things that you have to do? But somehow you're never able to really get to, because you're always spending time with those small little pebbles and small little rocks, right? You're basically filling up your time. This vase, you're filling it up with all these small pebbles, and then you can't fit those big rocks in anymore. Let me just quickly test if you guys can still hear me. All right, let's go. So, second thing we're going to talk about in this don't drop the ball thing is, how do you define those big rocks? How do you prioritize? And setting up your management system, typo there. How do you set up your management system, right? That's the second thing we're going to talk about, so that you have a management system, a routine to really manage the things that are important, not just the stuff that needs to get done, but the things that are important for you in your career to move ahead. That's what we look at in the second phase. Then the third step is about making your SWOT, right? So now that you make sure that you have a certain routine in place to keep going, to not drop the ball, how do you kind of assess yourself? How do you understand that? I see here we lost you for a couple of minutes. So yeah, let's take this afterwards in the Q&A then, maybe, to see where we got lost. Yeah, so let me just quickly repeat from the previous step what you guys must have missed. So first thing was about, we're overwhelmed with all these inputs, from everywhere, from meetings, from emails, WhatsApp. People put actions on us and fill our agenda through all these different sources, right? The question is, how do you organize yourself to not drop the ball with all these promises, etc., that we're making to people around us in terms of our work? Second, do you have a tool to somehow really prioritize on a daily basis, on a weekly basis? Because in the end, what typically happens is that you're busy doing all the small pebbles, the not so very important pieces of work, but the things that just have to get done, right? Or the small crisis that has to be fixed now, today. But this doesn't leave you time to focus on the big rock, which is, that learning, that training, that analysis, that report that you were going to read, that in fact is very important for your career or for your longer term goal or your targets, but you don't have time to start because you're spending all your time on nitty-gritty small stuff that is filling up your day. So what we'll do in the second step is basically talking about how do you define those big rocks, right? And this kind of refers to Stephen Covey, a great author of the 1990s. Then second is how to prioritize. How do you really prioritize this huge list of things that are important or not so important to you? And how do you make sure you can also prioritize those actions that you want to take to progress in your career? And the third, we're going to talk about how do you set up some kind of a management system. Right? How do you make sure that you have some kind of a routine, a management system to get yourself organized to make sure that you do not drop the ball. So that's step number one. Step number two, sorry, is don't drop the ball. So once you have this kind of routine in place, you make sure you don't drop the ball, you can kind of trust yourself. Great. Then we're going to look at SWOT. What are you doing really well? What are the things that you can improve, right? Let's look at ourselves and really make a SWOT. Like you would make a SWOT for a business, we're going to make a SWOT for ourselves. What are your strengths? What are the things that you're really good at? What are your weaknesses? Those skills, behaviors that you're not great at, that a lot of other colleagues are a lot better at than yourself. So this is really looking at yourself, strengths and weaknesses. Then we're going to look outside of ourselves, look at opportunities and threats. What are the opportunities around us, around you, in the company, in the market, in the city where you live, in the ecosystem that will help you in your career? It's an opportunity to help you in your career. And which are, on the opposite side, the threats to your career. What is happening around you that is really a potential threat for your career? And we're going to look at this for different types of skills, functional skills, right? The domain that you're working in terms of methodology, project management skills, Agile, Scrum, Six Sigma, things like that. And we're going to look at leadership competencies. So in the third phase, we're going to look at how do you create a SWOT? How do you really make a 360 view of yourself, not just based upon input of yourself, but also based upon input from other people. And here's a simple example of what, to me, a SWOT should look like. Right? What are the things that you're really good at? Okay, expert level of knowledge in the procurement process. I'm always very open to support my peers. I have great SAP skills. I'm eager to learn. Weaknesses, I'm not great at negotiating. So whenever I go to a meeting, I tend to say yes, and I get overloaded with all types of things. I'm not really good at negotiating with my peers. My style of presentation, is also quite basic. I'm not great in giving presentations, and therefore my messages kind of get lost to the audience. I'm not able to really convince people. Those are my two weaknesses, or the weaknesses here of Shantini in this example. Opportunities could be things like, hey, we're doing this Ariba project, and because she has strong SAP skills, she knows the process through and through. This is a great opportunity for her career to go and showcase herself on this Ariba project. And so that's an opportunity that she needs to think about. How do I make sure that I can showcase my skills, my knowledge, my behavior on this project? Even if you're not on the project, what are the ways for you to kind of get in, get exposure using that opportunity that is happening? Colleague has great presentation skills. Great, it's an opportunity. Don't take it as a threat. Take it as an opportunity. Go and sit with a colleague, learn, right, and try to get some best practices from him or her. Threats could be, for example, not mobile. You know what? I live in Bangalore. My family is here. I really cannot move. So depending on the company or the type of industry that you're in, can be a threat to your career, because sometimes you will be asked to move if you want to get great career opportunities. Or I don't have a network outside my team. I'm not the kind of guy, or Shantini, sorry, is not the kind of woman here that goes to the coffee bar, talks to a lot of people. No, she's much more focused on her job, talks to her direct colleagues, doesn't really have a big network outside of the team, which again could be something that is going to block her a little bit in her career. So that's an example of a SWOT. So in the third phase, we're basically looking at how do you make such a SWOT. Yeah? Next step is about understanding your context, right? This is something that I believe is extremely important. A lot of people today know their job really well, but don't really know the end-to-end, right? Even in a startup, even in a big international company, what are the teams next to you doing? What is the customer doing? What is the supplier doing? The things that you're developing. What is your customer doing with the product that you're delivering to him or her? A much greater understanding of the customer might completely change the way that you look at your work, and might give you completely different ideas on how to approach your work or the product that you're creating. So what we're going to do here in this phase is we're going to use a SIPOC SIPOC is basically from the Six Sigma methodology. It's typically used in process optimization when people start looking at a process and how do we optimize the process, make it more effective. You can use the same methodology and apply it to your job. So we're going to go through what is a SIPOC and how do you apply that to your job, which means the process in this case will be your job. What is it that you are doing? What is your responsibility? Who are your customers? So again, the product that you deliver, the service that you deliver, the output basically that you deliver, who is the customer of your product? Yeah? And make sure that you understand what this customer is doing with your product. Same on the other side is who are your suppliers? Which kind of inputs do you get for you to be able to do your job? What are the things that you depend on to do your job successfully? Who are those suppliers basically that you should also go and talk to for them to understand what you do with their outputs? If you understand your suppliers and your customers, you will get a much more end-to-end understanding of the business that you're in. And I'm sure you will find opportunities for you to improve your job, your responsibilities, your products, your services, based upon inputs from those suppliers and customers. Plus, because you will have this end-to-end understanding, people will start coming to you whenever they get stuck, whenever they have any questions. Because once you get this context, you will see that a lot more things will fall into place whenever there is a problem in your area. So that's the next thing we're going to do is see, okay, how do you create a SIPOC? How do you put this together? And how is this then going to help you to improve your current role? Again, you look at this is applicable in a startup, this is applicable in a big international company. Right? In a startup, you're most likely going to talk directly to your customer, right? You might go and talk directly to your supplier. If you look at big international companies, your customer could be another internal department. Might not be the external customer, could be another internal department that is basically the customer of whatever it is that you develop or deliver. And the same on the supplier side, could be another department that you are working with, and I'm basically going to ask you to go to that department, to visit them, to talk to them, to understand what they're doing, and the same to the customer. Go and talk to them. We're going to prepare you to have that conversation and get those inputs. Yeah? That's a SIPOC. So those are the first 4 steps. So you don't drop the ball anymore. You've kind of understood what is that you're great at, what are the things that you could improve. You start understanding the real end-to-end context of the area, the business that you're in. Now you need to make sure that if you start doing more, that you are visible, that people know who you are and what it is that you're doing and delivering. And here again, we just take a tool from project management. What do you do when you start a project? You map your stakeholders and you're going to make a communication plan. How are you going to keep your stakeholders up to date on your project? We're going to do the same here, but the project is your career. Right? For your career, who are the stakeholders that need to be aware of who you are, what you're doing, what you're delivering? So we're going to map those stakeholders. Here's a simple example of some stakeholders of, let's say, Shantini, for example. She will look at what is the interest of those stakeholders, right? What are they highly interested in? What are their priorities in the business today? And how am I going to then connect with them? How will I connect with those people and make sure that that they know who I am and what I'm doing? So here's an example. So Shadina is my manager, right? So of course she has a high power over my career. She has a direct influence over my career. What is her main interest? She doesn't want to have any escalations about the team, and she wants to be seen as a good manager. So what am I going to do? I'm going to make sure I have a weekly face-to-face, a one-to-one meeting with her, and I'm going to make sure every week that there's things that I do that help her in her priorities. How do I make sure there's no escalations in the team? And if there's any escalations, how can I absorb those? How can I solve those instead of them going to the manager? And what can I do to make sure that she is seen as a good manager? How can I help her in having a better reputation as a manager. I see here a question, but at early stage of career to 7-10 years, we are not participating such managerial roles. Yeah, I think depends the company that you're in, right? So in some companies, for sure, it might take a while before you get into a managerial role. Other companies could be 2-3 years for you to start taking your first management roles. But I'm not really sure what the question is linked to here. Here we're mapping your stakeholders, can be at any level. Who are those stakeholders that can influence your career? They need to be aware of what it is that you're doing, the results that you're achieving, so that the next time that there's an opportunity for a promotion, for a move to a different type of role, for a great project, that your name pops up in the head of those people, right? How do you make sure that those people know you, they know your achievements, so that when there's an opportunity, your name basically pops up. Next is go beyond. So once you've done all of this, you understand the context, you're improving some of your weaknesses, people start to know who you are and see what you're delivering. Then the next thing is go beyond, right? Go and do something extra. Don't just stick to your job description, to the things that is basically expected of you. Do more, right? Show that you're capable of doing more. And here again, referring to something out of the book of Stephen Covey, and also some other people talked about the same concept. It's like the hedgehog concept, right? So what is the hedgehog really good at? The hedgehog is not really good at a lot of things, right? Doesn't run very fast, cannot jump very high, probably doesn't really swim, I guess. But he's really good at one thing, and that makes him super famous. And by the way, protects him from the fox that you can see there on the left. The moment that there is any kind of danger, he completely transforms into this hairy, sticky, no, not sticky, but pointy ball, right? And the fox cannot do anything. So he's basically good at one great thing, and that's how he protects himself, right? So the point here is, and it's referred to in Japanese as the ikigai, is what is that one thing that you are passionate about, the one thing that you can be the best at in your team, in your department, in the company, and that one thing that the company also needs. So we're going to help you to find that one thing, and this is very difficult for sure for people early in their career. Sometimes it's very difficult to find what this kind of ikigai for them is, but very important that you understand what is it that you're really passionate about. So you're automatically going to put time, because you're so passionate about it that whenever you have a spare time, you will focus on developing that skill because you love it. Second, you can be the best at it. So it's really something that you're extremely strong at compared to a lot of other people in the team or the company. And at the same time, it has to be something that the company also needs. Yeah? So let's take an example of IIT graduate or anyone else who is great in coding, and you're super passionate about coding. This is something you've been doing for the last 5 years, 10 years. Whenever you have an hour of spare time, you start studying about the new coding languages, you write algorithms, etc. So you're really passionate about it. The second, you can be the best at it because, again, whenever you have some spare time, you're reading about the latest technologies. So you for sure can be the best at it because a lot of other people are not that interested in coding. And hey, you know what? At the same time, you see that in your company, there is a big automation initiative, for example, where they need a lot of people that have this kind of coding skill to develop bots, to develop algorithm. This could be something that defines you in your career in that company, right? You need to make sure that you start using that skill in the office, whether this is in your current job or not. That's what I'm going to challenge you with here is, if this is not part of your current role and you're not using that skill, great. Discuss with your line manager, discuss with people around you, how can you start using that skill, showcase that skill, deliver some amazing results, and really go beyond. That's the whole point here. Go beyond your basic job responsibility, so people will notice that you have more potential. Yeah, I see here a question isn't quite difficult to understand as to what extent one should try to be a spider in the web. At what point is it considered intrusive by people? Yeah, that's a very good point. You need to make sure that you keep a fine balance. It's very important to manage those stakeholders to make sure they get some kind of an insight into what you're doing. But the moment that you start becoming like you mentioned here, intrusive. You try to meet them every week. You try to send them an email every week, and people start finding it a bit annoying. It will have the opposite effect, right? So again, there are also a couple of tips and tricks. How do you make sure that you keep people up to date without being intrusive? And a very simple trick, for example, is just if you have one or two stakeholders that you don't see very often, they're probably a bit more senior than you are. Instead of trying to chase them and book time for a one-to-one or try to, somehow get FaceTime with them, just drop them an email from time to time. Say, hey, this is Serge. We met left or right. Of course, you need to have a kind of introduction point. You cannot just send them an email out of the blue. And just give a quick update on, hey, this is something I've been doing. By the way, if you have any suggestions for me to do even better, always welcome. And that's it. Just like a quick update, something that I regularly do with some of the top stakeholders. Just send them an email with 2-3 bullet points of a couple of amazing things that you've done over the last 2-3 weeks or months, just to kind of keep you up to date. This is something that I did. If you're interested, I can always drop by to give you some more details or share with other people, but yeah, just so you know, this is something I'm doing. It's not intrusive at all, and people can notice what you're doing. Okay, so these are all the steps to make sure that you kind of make sure you don't drop the ball and that you start standing out in your role. But one of the most important is to have consistent execution, to really do this week in, week out. Because what is the difference between the average and great? And this holds true in sports, but it's exactly the same in business. People who deliver great results, who have great careers, they have three traits that average people don't have or have a lot less. The first one is commitment. They are really committed to certain goals. They know what they want. They go after that goal relentlessly. Right? That's the first thing that we see with very successful people. They know what they want and they go after it. They're not moving, floating around in their career, moving from left to right without real direction, without clear goal. They know what they want, and they also figure out, how do I get to the place that I want to be. So the first thing is commitment, and so that's the thing that we address in the very first step of this mentoring plan. The second one is focus. They have extreme focus. They put this goal and they will focus on that goal every single day, every single week. If your goal here is to make a big step change in your career, you need to be focused on it every single day, every week. It's not something that you now say, this nice Wednesday evening between 8 and 9, I'm going to go to this webinar, I'm going to listen to what this Belgian guy has to say, and then tomorrow, you get back to your job, you kind of forget all about it, and in 2 weeks, you think about it again and say, yeah, this guy had this interesting idea, but I never really did something with it. So you need to have focus. You have this goal, then you need to focus on it every day, every week, get back to it. And the third one is discipline. Disciplined execution. If you say you're going to do something, you do it, right? So if you're going to take a next action, a next task to create your SWOT, you're actually going to do it. If you put this assignment in your agenda for the next 3 days, you're actually going to do it. You're not going to procrastinate. You're not going to say, I didn't have time because I have a call left and right, or I had to go and meet this person. No, you take your choices and you have discipline of execution. Those are the three things that you see in top athletes, same things that you see in very successful people in terms of careers. So what do I suggest in this, again, this 4-week program? And after the 4 weeks, it doesn't really end, right? Because what I'm suggesting is that afterwards, You kind of review every week. I try to find an easy acronym, wasn't that easy, so it's called biscuits. Every week you look at your biscuits. Yeah? You look at your basic expectations and your routine. What is your management system? What are your big rocks? What are the most important things that you need to get done this week? You look at those basic expectations that you really have to do and the routine that you do on a weekly basis to make sure you don't drop the ball and you put for yourself the right priorities. Yeah? That's the first thing you need to do every single week. Second, look at your SWOT. You created this SWOT. Look at the SWOT. You've agreed with yourself that you will improve one weakness. And again, in the mentor plan, I'll talk about why do you need to pick first a weakness to improve and not a strength. So you're going to look at this weakness and say, what am I going to do this week to improve that weakness? Again, every single week. This will not end after 4 weeks. If this is something you're really serious about, you will keep on doing several weeks afterwards as well. Third is the context, right? What is the context? What action are you going to take this week to further understand your context? Suppliers, customers, inputs, outputs. What are you going to do this week to understand that context better? Better than anyone else in your team or department. Yeah? Next is talk to your stakeholders. What are you going to do this week? Which one stakeholder are you going to talk to this week and how? Are you going to drop by your line manager? Are you going to meet this one customer of your process at the coffee machine and have a quick chat? What is it you're going to do to create visibility with that one stakeholder? And the last thing is your strength. What is that one strength, the thing that you're going to do, the ikigai? What are you going to do this week to further develop that ikigai, to further develop that strength? If you're great at coding, you're passionate about it, by the way, we can use it in the office today, great. What am I going to do this week to keep my competitive edge with everybody else? So when you follow this program, I'll give you a lot of more details and some assignments on how to work out each of those aspects. And then I'll suggest to you a routine to look at those biscuits every single week for you to really keep going again in a disciplined way, right? Focus, it's going to be focus. These are the things you're going to focus on to ace your job, to move in your career. And with discipline, every single week, we're going to look at those biscuits. That's the concept. And then the last step, once we've done all of this, it's time to go and sit with your line manager and ask for feedback, right? What happened after those 4 or 5 weeks? Did anything change? Did he or she notice a difference? Did he or she see that you're approaching your career differently, that you might be demonstrating a bit more potential than what you were showing before? And then we're going to ask for feedback. We're going to sit with the line manager, ask for feedback. I love this quote of Milton Friedman, who says there is no such thing as a free lunch, right? Basically, nothing is for free. If something is for free, it means that somebody else is paying for it. That's what Milton Friedman, famous economist, used to say. There's only one thing that is for free, and that is feedback. You don't have to pay anything for feedback. Nobody else is paying for your line manager or anyone else to give you feedback. This is something that's completely free. All you have to do is go to somebody and ask them, can we sit down 10 minutes? Can you share with me some feedback? You will see a lot of people will take 10 minutes, 15 minutes, sit down with you and share you some really useful feedback. What we'll do is talk about how do you ask for feedback, how do you take feedback. So here you can see 6 best practices, right, of how I believe you need to take feedback. It's all about listening actively, right? Be silent. If you go into a feedback meeting, you're going to be silent. You're not going to talk. You're going to listen to what people have to say. You're not going to start defending yourself or coming up with excuses, etc. You're going to listen. You're going to rephrase what the person is saying. That's all you'll be allowed to do. The second thing that you'll be allowed to do is ask questions to understand. Right? Again, you're going to be defensive. You're going to ask questions to understand, and we'll talk about a way, the SBI method, for you how to ask questions and how to really make sure that you understand the feedback. Third, again, don't argue, don't defend. Right? All feedback is perception. If other people have a certain perception about you and your performance, yeah, it's true, it's reality. You might think it's different, but this is how those people see you. So get feedback from multiple people, don't get just from one person. Don't take it personal. This is probably the toughest. I think a lot of people will take it very personal if they receive feedback, but you need to separate the feedback that you get. It's not a feedback on you as a person, it's feedback on your performance in a role. Right? Very, very important to separate the feedback that you receive. It's not a personal judgment of yourself. Don't judge the person that is giving you the feedback, and then of course in the end say thank you, it's a free training. You've just received a free training, free input on your performance. That's it. So basically these are the main building blocks that we're looking at in this mentoring plan. These are all the different phases. Just to give you a bit of a teaser, what we're working on is basically an app. Imagine that there would be an app, that would help you to thrive at work, to achieve this type of goals. An app that will give you this methodology on how to set and achieve goals. Again, this methodology is based upon research, and also will provide you mentoring content at the same time, right? Just like the mentoring content we've just seen. And of course, this app would connect you to some like-minded high achievers, right? They would be working in the same app, working on the same goal. You could chat with those people, you could share ideas with those people. That's something that we're working on. But in the meantime, we've set up a WhatsApp group with exactly the same purpose, where if you join us, we can basically take you through the content. We'll send you those content snippets, right, as I call it. It's not going to be podcasts yet. It's still like 1 or 2 page documents. There's also going to be some assignments, simple assignments. How do you apply this knowledge in your career? Right? There will be some templates that we'll share as well to really help you very pragmatically apply this knowledge in your career and is your job. Okay, that's it. I see there's 2 more questions. So from Sanskar, I'm good in project management and deliveries, client management, but stuck as developer due to less experience, which making me dull trying in other companies, but not offering roles because of developer. Yeah, so good point. So the goal is what do you want, right? What do you want? And if you know already for yourself that your weakness today is, if I understand well here, your developing skills. And even if you want to change jobs and people are not offering you because you don't have the developer skills, the next step is pretty clear. If you know what you want, and this is important to you and your career, but you need to close one gap, you have one weakness, which could also be a threat, right? Because if you don't start developing that skill, it's going to be a threat for your career. All you need to do is commit to developing those skills, right? Try to understand, how do I develop those skills? Talk to somebody around you that really has those skills. Go and talk to that person and understand, and from him or from her, how did he or she develop those skills? What can you do to get better in development? What are the websites, the podcasts, the books that he or she has read that has really helped him or her developing that skill? You go after it, you put for yourself this goal, and every day, every week, you will think about, how do I make sure that I improve this weakness that I have today? If I understood the question well, that's more or less what I would do, right? So you're saying good in project management delivery, but stuck as a developer due to less experience. So yeah, the question is, how do you get more experience in developing? And sometimes the answer again is very simple. Talk to people. Talk to other people that you see are better than yourself today. And you'll be very surprised that people are going to be very open to share with you their best practices. It will be very flattering for them, right? They will share their knowledge. They will share their tips and tricks very easily with you, and that's something how you will be able to learn and improve. That's my view. Other question is, the feedback from a person is subject to his or her perspective. Filtering the most relevant ones from the parties one has associated with can be challenging. How do you see this problem? Yeah, that's what I briefly mentioned. No, so in the end, yes, it is subjective feedback. In a lot of cases, is very subjective. Some feedback will be objective if it can be linked to direct results, but most of the feedback is around behaviors, about communication, collaboration, which is very subjective. But again, is the reality, right? Imagine that you're not in the room. People are talking about you, about your performance, about your career. People will be talking about their subjective evaluation of you. So it is a reality that you need to face. So what I always suggest is go and talk to several people when you create your SWOT. Don't just discuss your SWOT with your line manager. Typically, people make a strength weaknesses overview of themselves, discuss with their line manager, and that's about it. I would suggest you do a full 360, right? And that's what we'll do in this 4-week program as well. We're going to talk to your peers. You're going to, of course, create your SWOT yourself. You're going to talk to your line manager. You're going to talk to some of your customers. You're going to talk to some of your suppliers, several people that you work with. You're going to ask for feedback. Then you're going to put this all together, and then you will see whether this subjective evaluation from this one person is something that comes back consistently from several people, or whether this is one individual that has this one perception of yourself that other people do not have. Right? And that will then basically explain to you how to approach it. If this feedback comes back consistently from several people, then it's clearly something that you might not be seeing it, but other people around you have that perception, perceive you in this way. So then you really need to take the feedback and do something about it. If it's one individual and all the other people have a very different opinion, it would be good to sit down with that person and share, okay, I get a different feedback from different people, and kind of challenge that person slightly on the feedback that he or she is giving, maybe using some other examples based upon the feedback you got from different people. So in summary, get feedback from several people, and then you will know how to approach. But yes, feedback is always subjective, but is always true. Right? So denying it and saying no, it's not true, I don't agree with it, is the stupidest thing you can do, because you're denying the perception of at least one person out there, again, who could have an influence on your career. Right? Depends if that person can influence your career positively or negatively. So I hope that answered the question. Let me scroll up and see if there was any other questions. I'm not married with 3 kids. So I'm married and have 3 kids. Yeah, indeed. Somebody asked here, Janskar, I am a UI developer. Will it be helpful for me? Yeah, I mean, up to you now to figure out if this is something that you believe helps you. But again, all these concepts have nothing to do with a finance organization or with an FMCG organization or a bank or anything. These are concepts that you can use in a startup or in a big international company. All right, any final questions? So I hope everybody here in the webinar is part of the WhatsApp group. If you're not in the WhatsApp group, send me a message there in the chat. Then we'll send you the link for the WhatsApp group, because later this week we will start sharing the content with everybody, and then looking forward to see if you find it useful and if you're going to make a difference in your career. Any final questions? Let's see, several people are still there. All right, so I think that's it. Again, make sure you join the WhatsApp group. If you're not in the WhatsApp group yet, drop me a message here in the live stream. I'll keep it open for a couple minutes. Or if you're from the meetup group, drop me a message in the meetup group. I'll send you the WhatsApp group details there, because we'll start sharing the content in the WhatsApp group later this week. How do we find latest trends in our field of work? This is a very, very difficult, a very open-ended question. You know? So it depends which is your field of work. You know? For me, the medium that has always helped me find what I wanted to find is Google, is Dr. Google. So very, very simple. So this, for example, the content that I've put together here as an example is something that I've been interested in the last 10, 20 years, basically since the start of my career. I'm very interested in productivity management, in time management, in career management, people management, all these type of topics. The only way that I get to this type of researches, for example, that I've read on goal setting is just Google. But yeah, you need to take time for it. It's not that you Google once and then you get your answers. I spent quite a lot of time just researching on the web, finding different types of sources. So I don't think there's a silver bullet to this one. Yeah. Going online and finding people that are in that area, which people are working in that domain and seem to have experience. Who are those people connected with? Which books are those people reading? I use LinkedIn quite often now to see people that I interact or that I'm very interested in. I see what those people are reading, what they are posting, which conferences they're attending. So yeah, latest research topics with to connect to people who are in academical research work. Yeah, that's it. But again, you find everything online. You literally find almost everything online. Maybe if it's not the full research document, at least you find summaries of all these types of research. So I'm not sure, Harshim, what kind of context you're asking the question. Good, that's it. So join the WhatsApp group and we'll start sharing the content there later on. Harsh, if you have a question that's maybe a bit more, let's say, direct or on a specific area or so, I might be able to give you a bit more advice, but like this is quite high level. All right, thanks everyone for joining. I hope you liked it. So see you in the WhatsApp group. Cheers.